Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about some other lore in CENTAURA and Deadhead. Now, I have made videos on both of these games, which I recommend watching before this one, but there's a lot of lore I've missed. I still haven't covered the lore of every nation, and there's other stuff I didn't talk about, like culture and technology. I will be splitting these videos into two parts, as there is so much other lore. This one is on other nations and some other wars. I put links and timestamps in the description. So in the last videos, I only talked about Orion, Hydrus, Libra, Auriga, Muscat, Antares, Ursa, Rhea, Corvus, and Cetus. But there are some other nations that I haven't talked about. All of them are on the continent of Centaura. I'll start with Aquila. Aquila is a well-developed nation located north of Antares and east of Cetus. Aquila is a constitutional monarchy and relatively stable. Aquila's military was medium-sized at the time of the South Corvus War. Antares later invaded Aquila in 1912 and annexed them in 1913. Aquila's terrain is made up mostly of temperate and boreal forests at varying longitudes. Small mountain ranges can be found in the country's south. Larger ones, like the Virgo Barrier, can be found in the north. Aquila is renowned for its lumber industry. Next is Vega. Vega is a relatively small country, although it is highly developed. Vega is a monarchy and relies mostly on the lumber industry for income, like Aquila. Its terrain is made up of forests and islands on the east coast and tall mountains in the west. Vega's army has always been small, although they had a decent navy. Vega was quickly overrun by Antares in 1914. Before this, Vega had been in a cold war with its neighbor to the north, Grusa, since the 1600s, although they never went to war. The next nation is Grusa. Grusa is another relatively small but not so developed nation. They are a monarchy. Grusa's economy is based mostly on fishing and whaling, as they have a large coastline, likely because their territory is made up of deserts and grasslands and is devoid of any resources. Grusa's army was under-equipped and unskilled. They were annexed by Antares in 1915. Now for one of my favorite nations, Columba. Columba is a monarchy and located in the center of the Centaurian continent. Its territory is mostly covered by deserts, although more fertile land is present by the coast of the Annulus Sea. On top of this, Columba is renowned for the world's tallest mountains, which span almost the entire interior of the country. Columba is rich in resources like gold, titanium, tungsten, copper, and diamonds. This made them quite rich and prosperous through their mining industry. They had a medium-sized military at the time of the Antarean invasion in 1917. The Columban army fought using guerrilla tactics in the alpine terrain to their advantage, digging extensive bunkers and hidden artillery positions. Columba fought valiantly, and it took Antares 23 years to destroy their army until 1940. Next up is Centauri. Centauri is a relatively small yet developed monarchy located on a peninsula surrounded by 3 bodies of water. Their territory is made up mostly of boreal forests, although they lack natural resources other than wood. Their army was relatively weak when Antares invaded, although they had a solid navy and the best coastal defense forts in the world, armed with extremely heavy artillery pieces capable of shredding any ship in their sight. Their economy was primarily based on whaling and fishing. The next nation is Tucana. Tucana is a small, semi-developed democracy in the far north of Centaura. They had a decent army and navy at the time of the Centaurian Wars. Their territory is made up of snowy boreal forests and tundras. The Biascia mountain range cuts through the center of their territory. Their economy was reliant on lumber, ice harvesting, and fishing. Now for Volpa. Volpa is a relatively poor island nation situated off the coast of Rhea. Volpa was formed by Yusheni imperialists fleeing Rhea after the Yusheni Civil War. I'll talk more about that later. Now for the last and most hated nation on Forma, Lacerta. Lacerta is a desolate island nation in the far south with a small economy that can barely support its people. Much of Lacerta's army and navy use muskets and sailing ships dating back to the 1700s. Lacerta is regarded as a joke on the world stage. So yeah, those were all the other nations. So in the world of Forma, there are only really 2 other major wars in the modern timeline besides the Centaurian and the Forman War. These wars being the Greece War and the Yusheni Civil War. I'll talk about the Greece War first. So the seeds for the Greece War were first planted in 1890, when miners in the territories of Canis, Hydra, and Hydrus Minor began to revolt against their Ursan oppressors. These rebellions intensified until Hydrus and Hydra Minor became independent in 1901. This brought on the Greece War, where Ursa tried to take back these territories. As for Canis, they are relatively split. Half the population in Canis wanted independence, while the other half were loyalists to Ursa. Orion joined the war in 1902 on the side of Hydra and Hydra Minor. Guerrilla warfare ensued across these territories until 1905, when Canis fell to the rebels. Ursa agreed to a peace treaty, which stripped them of all their possessions on the Hydran continent, leaving them with just their homelands. Both Canis and Hydra Minor would be integrated into the newly formed Hydra's Commonwealth by 1908. Now for the Yasheni Civil War. The Yasheni Civil War started in 1888 when nationalists began to revolt in the far east and north of Yishan. For those of you who don't know, Rhea used to be called Yishan. Guerrilla warfare and gruesome slaughter raged on for years. By 1892, 3/5 of Rhea had fallen to the nationalists. By 1895, the nationalists had won the war and completely swept the Yasheni imperialists off the continent. The remaining imperialists fled to the Vulpan Isles, where they briefly formed their own country before it was annexed by Antares. So those were the other modern wars in the lore of Dead Ahead and Centura. The next video in this series will be on culture and technology, as well as some other stuff too. To those of you who are expecting me to get a new mic by now, sorry, I won't have one until Christmas. Thanks for watching to the end of the video, and consider liking and subscribing.